KFSR and CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger, a public affairs program featuring stories from all over the Central Valley with Sevag Tateosian, 90.7 KFSR.
Welcome to another edition of the Central Valley Ledger. We're recording out of the beautiful downtown Fresno studios of CMAC, the Community Media Access Collaborative, Fresno and Clovis. Our guest this week is Jerry Palladino, Gerald, but you go by Jerry Palladino.
Yeah.
You are with many organizations, but the last time I saw you and worked with you, you were a part of an organization called Curtain 5 Theater Group?
Well, that's my business, okay? And everything else that I do is volunteering in. I'm on several boards, but I am only concentrating my efforts of volunteerism in organizations that are involved with the cultural arts.
Well, but I want to say that you have many, many years in the private sector. You retired and now you're volunteering. So I'm going to actually give a shout out to the crew that's volunteering this program, Gary Johnson and Gary Kennedy. They worked and they retired and now they're helping programs like this. So it's great to see that.
Well, you know, it's like I say now with all my quote volunteerism, if I don't feel like waking up in the morning and doing anything, I don't feel guilty about it. But you know something? I get up and do it anyway because there's joy and satisfaction in the fact that I'm doing something that is contributing to the community. And, you know, Fresno is a place that I could come back to. I was born and raised here. And with my expertise and background, I can do so much more in the community here than I could living in San Francisco or New York or London, which were many of the places I lived when I worked for Bank of America.
So we can talk several shows with you because of your career and your opportunities. And I mean, you stayed with a company 40-something years.
43 years.
43 years. I mean, that nowadays is very, very rare.
It's non-existent.
So, but today I invited you on because CMAC, and you know Paul Starcevic, we've been out to your location with volunteers and we filmed a couple of wonderful productions.
Yeah, you've actually filmed three of my rogue shows.
So how did those come about? Because when you're introducing them, you say that high school students actually wrote them?
The three rogue shows that we've done were all written by the same person. He was a senior at Roosevelt School of the Arts when we opted to do his first play.
Okay.
Well, we've done four of his. His name is Cyrus Kinzel. Cyrus now lives in Texas and he's going to university there. But he just has a gift for writing comedy, and they're way over the top. You know, they're crazy comedies. And for me, when I decided that I wanted to be part of the Rogue Festival, I know that people enjoy coming and laughing and having a good time. His stuff was so over the top. I said, let's try it. Well, we actually did quite well. In fact, the last show that he did in 2017, we won the popular vote as the most popular play that was done that year.
So and one of the great things about the partnership with CMAC is people actually saw that on the screen. That was amazing because it looked like even the actors and actresses, they were very professional. How do you pick your actors and actresses?
Well, it actually goes along with how we named the theater. I mean, we perform at Fresno Soap Co. You were there and you helped us film. You noticed that it's a black box theater. There are three curtained openings against the back wall. There's an entrance from, quote, the lobby, and another one that's 5, so we called it Curtain 5. It was really fun, but it's a small black box theater that seats 50 people. Curtain 5, rather than named it as Curtain 5 Theater, we named it Curtain 5 Theater Group. And all my actors are volunteers. They audition and come in, but once they're in a play, they're part of the group. So it's fun for audience members that we have who come and see plays. Oh, I saw you in such and such or that. But I often told my actors, if you could survive and act in an environment where you could see the faces of your audience, you have to use your entire body language, your face, your expressions. You become a believable character. If you're comfortable in that environment, once you're on a regular proscenium stage and you don't see your audience, you're perfectly fine.
And they did very well. You selected well, whoever selected them.
We have fun, you know. It's I come from a long background of theater. In fact, I'm very sad because my mentor, Gordon Godey, who had Theater 3, just passed away earlier this week.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear.
And, but you know, he was, I think, close to 90, but Theater 3 used to be downtown. Like a lot of Fresno actors, I didn't grow up at Second Space or Roger Rocca. I grew up at Theater 3. So I was in roughly 38 productions over a 15-year period with Gordon. And when I came back to Fresno, he asked me to be in the last 2 shows that he was actually staging at Theater 3 because he was moving to Florida to retire. And then the weather was not conducive, so he finally moved back. So he was back in Fresno for a couple of years, but his health was ailing. But it was so much fun because the first production that I did for him was an old German comedy written years ago in the German language. It was called The Underpants. Steve Martin picked it up and rewrote it.
Oh, wow.
And it was so much fun. And Gordon said, there's a perfect role for you, Jerry. He said, it may be the smallest role in the play, but he said, you're perfect for it because you're old enough for the role. And I said, well, what's the role? He said, well, he's an old professor who's an old codger who's irritable all the time because he suffers from constant constipation. And so I had so much fun with the role. So we did it at Theater 3. 10 years later, we revived it, and I did it again, playing the same character at Curtain 5, and Raoul Scott directed it then. It was great fun because Donald Monroe at the time was working for the Bee, and he came to see the show. And the young lady that was playing in it is now studying theater at UC Irvine.
Wow.
Reshma Meister, and she did some wonderful things at Fresno State. In fact, the last play she was in, she played Blanche Dubois obviously, now I'm going blank on me.
That's impressive.
Streetcar Named Desire. But she played this role, and it was a fun comedy. But Donald Monroe thought it was not as over the top. It was a little too reserved. But he thought that Reshma's performance and mine were very good. So I really appreciated that. But we had a lot of fun with that.
So I'm hearing you talk about all these different things happening in Fresno. When people think about theater, they think of New York, obviously, Los Angeles, and some of the other bigger cities. But when I'm hearing you speak, are we a player in theater?
Have you ever been to one of Joel Abel's productions at Stageworks Fresno?
Not at Stageworks. Good. I've been to Roger Rockus.
Oh, well, I mean, Dan Pisano has been here for, 45 or 46 years. And what he does at Roger Rocca in that limited space, I mean, he does all the musicals, and it's a dinner theater. Of course, it's not Broadway, but he does a wonderful job. And he's got a audience that's
Right.
great. And then he does a lot of plays at Second Space, which is a wonderful venue. Joel Abels, on the other hand, was an actor on Broadway. He came back to Fresno, and he does a lot of musical comedy here. But rather than pick the musicals that everybody knows, he goes one step further and picks great theater from New York, but things that you don't necessarily hear in Fresno. And that's wonderful, because what he's done is remarkable. And he's now in his 7th season, and productions have been selling out. I mean, and he does a wonderful job. If you have an opportunity to go, you will see theater there as good as anything you'll see on Broadway.
Nice. And it's amazing hearing from you all the different, growing up, I just heard of Roger Ruckus, but I didn't know that there are all these other theater groups out there.
Well, there's so much talent in Fresno. It's just that we happen to live in a city that doesn't really support the arts. There are a lot of cities around the country that are the same size as Fresno that subsidize the arts. Hopefully now, with the prop that we're hoping to get with the parks, is that if it passes, we will be getting $3.9 million a year for local cultural arts organizations for the next 30 years. That's really...
That kind of money really will make an
impact.
And
it will help, because most of the organizations, with the exception of, let's say, the Fresno Philharmonic, who's been here for 66 years, or youth orchestras of Fresno that have been here for 65 years. The Fresno Grand Opera is no longer here. The Fresno Art Museum is doing quite well, but all the arts organizations struggle.
Well, here is a perfect example where we're sitting, recording this interview now at CMAC Studios. I came years ago, and there was a dinosaur because it was a museum. So we came out and looked at the beautiful dinosaurs sitting around the area where we're sitting. The 3 we saw were great. We enjoyed them. I enjoyed watching them on CMAC. But you have something else coming up that I think is very, very interesting.
Okay.
Talk about it.
Okay, last year, I was approached by Nikiko Masamoto, who's Masa's daughter, and Bryn Saito, who at that time is a published poet. And they're both refer to themselves as Yonsei Americans. Yonsei is 4th generation Japanese, or in this case, 4th generation Japanese Americans. Nikiko and Bryn developed a nonprofit called the Yonsei Memory Project. And they came to me with, I went to them. I had watched a solo show that Nikiko did at Fresno State. And what she did in an hour period was told the stories of 13 different Japanese Americans that were incarcerated. They were either young children or men or women. And I was so impressed with the stories that she actually wrote and performed herself. And I said, we really need to do something like this at Curtain 5. And I said, what I would like to do is produce it for you and help stage it, and we'll make it a fundraiser for the Yonsei Memory Project. Well, that production resulted in in a show that was called Hold This Stone.
Hold This Stone.
And it was poetry and performance and dialogue that was written by Bryn and Nikiko and performed on site at Fresno Soap Co. And she liked my venue because it was intimate space, small audience.
I want to stop you there, because sometimes you go to these performances and it's huge. If you sit in the back, good luck seeing what you're going to see. The productions that I went to that you did, we're really like up front. What's the capacity before we continue with?
50 seats.
See, and that's so
and
intimate.
the farthest, the back row is roughly 11 or 12 feet from the performance space.
Yeah. So, and going back to her, I can imagine why she liked it, because it's so close.
And you know, the whole thing is she's, besides being such a great writer and poet, and both of them, it was, you could see the emotion in their stories. And of course, Hold As Stone, we were raising money in the year that was actually the anniversary of the incarceration of the Japanese during World War II. We had only 2 performances. I wish we'd have had more because we turned away over 200 people.
Wow.
And we were able to raise, through ticket sales, over $2,000, which was given over to the Fresno Arts Council that held the money for them. With that $2,000, they had a bus trip and everything else that was done with people of the community being able to really see and learn more about the local Japanese that were incarcerated here. I went on the trip with them, and I was just so satisfied and felt just so good about the fact that our theater project raised all the money that they were able to do this without costing anybody anything.
Many people know the story, but not the details of the story. So I think projects like this will help share the more details of what occurred, because sure, we've learned about it, but did you find these plays taught you stuff that you didn't know?
Of course. And the wonderful thing about it is that one of the pieces that, one of the dialogues or performances that Nikiko had was not telling a story about Japanese Americans. It was a story about a Mexican American and how they felt, everything was about the strength of the human spirit and how even under the pressure of being incarcerated, man's inhumanity of man, these people rose above that. And because of their spirit and the nature of their heart, they're able to survive and move on. Now, what we're doing this year is an extension of Hold As Stone. This year, and it's going to be again we're going to do 4 performances. It'll be October 27th and 28th and November 3rd and 4th at Fresno Soapco. It's called Storytelling for Change. What Bryn and Nikiko have done is they're going to continue with the storytelling that they had, but now, because of the money that they were able to raise through the Yonsei Memory Project, that they have people who signed to be instructed by them on writing poetry and stories, so they too can tell their stories. So what we're going to do is they're going to be original pieces that are going to be performed by Bryn and Nikiko, but they've invited a guest or 2 at each performance to tell stories. It could be about the Japanese, it could be about any number of individuals who have endured because of oppression. And it's really going to be more about justice and equality, social change. But what's really surprising is that some of the guest speakers who are going to be telling stories are Nikiko's father, Mas Masamoto. Another one is going to be our poet laureate, Lee Herrick. Mm-hmm. And it'll be a few others. But even if you wanted to attend one of every of the 4 performances, there'll be different guests telling stories. But we've had so much fun. We'll be able to raise even more money for them. But I'm really For me, I don't care about making any money on productions like this. When you think about it, that all the ticket sales and everything would go in my pocket, so it's still a write-off for me. It's a donation that I can, so it helps me with the IRS. But more so, it provides funds for these two artists to continue doing what they're doing. And it's an amazing experience.
Projects like that will have an impact on the people that watch and the people that are involved and the people who are in it. We're running out of time, but I'd like to know briefly talent for this production. The last time you did this, did you have any issues? How were the talent?
The only issues I have sometimes are that if some of my actors are working, and most of them are, they can't make a rehearsal or something, but we, because they're small productions, we work around that. We've had some problems where we've had to cancel a show, but that's few and far between. The real asset that we have is that actors who participate in these plays are doing it because it's out of heart, it's out of love. And, they don't make any money, it's volunteer, but they're adding to their own professional experience. But our audiences, we've had them cry, and people keep coming back because they love the fact that these productions are intimate. And there's something wonderful about, the last Rogue show that you did, where it was the funny play about the body parts and everything, and they were throwing that into the audience. People were having a good time, but I don't do those as a play for Curtain 5. I love doing it for Rogue because that's what people come for. Comedies really do the business.
And for Curtain 5 or your Rogue program, CMAC actually has aired them, and so if anybody's interested, they can go visit the CMAC page. The production was done that day by Paul Starcevic, who also has volunteered on this program. He did a marvelous job editing and bringing it all together.
They're beautiful.
He does very professional work. So,
and I have to tell you, I have gotten so many emails and Facebook messages from people who have attended not only the Rogue shows, but the Curtain 5 shows. We are undergoing a renovation at Curtain 5, so we haven't done anything this year, and people were worried that we were closing our doors, and it's just...
I can't wait to go out and see this latest work. I think it's going to be impactful. You all over there do a wonderful job. I wish we had more time to talk to you a little bit more about some of this other stuff, but...
Well, invite me back.
I will invite you anytime.
I know this one, you called me yesterday, and I was so happy that I actually had the time.
And I'm happy too, so thank you for making the time to be on the program. How can people find out more about Curtain 5? You have a Facebook page.
Right now, we're going to develop a Facebook page with Fresno Soap Co. as well. But right now, they can come to Curtain 5 when I have a production I have. Something on there. But
Jerry, as always, thank you so much for being a part of the program. You do a wonderful job, and thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's all for this edition of the Central Valley Ledger. Thank you to the volunteer crew that make this production and every production possible. It was directed today by Gary Johnson and Gary Kennedy. Thank you also to those watching this broadcast on the CMAC channels, Comcast 93 and AT&T 99. We hope you enjoyed the program. Also to those who listen to this broadcast on KFSR 90.7 FM. We hope you enjoyed the program this week. Tune in next week to a new edition.
KFSR and CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger every Sunday morning at 11:30. For a complete program schedule, visit kfsr.org.